What's up guys, today we are going to crochet a hair accessory. We are going to crochet a bow which can be detached from the end ribbons for like hair down hairstyles, and all you need is a barrette in the back for it. And then we are also going to just need a hair tie to crochet the end hair ties for ponytails or buns. The materials you will need is some yarn. I prefer to use a smaller yarn than your typical acrylic yarn you get from Super Saver, just because it makes the bow less chunky and a little more drapey. And then a pair of scissors, of course. And I use a smaller hook for the same reason. I'll be using a 4.5mm crochet hook, a tapestry needle, and a measuring tape. The measuring tape you will need to measure the ribbons that we will be making. And then you will need the barrette. The barrette needs to be big enough that your tapestry needle can fit through this open part, but small enough that the bow will hide it in the back. And then whatever hair tie works for you. I'll be using a hair tie with similar color to my yarn just so it hides better underneath, because you will see it a little bit when it's stretched out. To start our bow, we are going to start with our main piece here. We are going to make these two ribbons, the long ribbons on either side of the middle. And we are going to be using the mesh stitch this whole entire time for all the pieces, including the ribbons on the hair tie. And to start, we are going to start with a slip knot. How I make a slip knot is I grab the yarn between my ring finger and thumb, I wrap around my index and middle twice, and then re-grab the yarn between my ring finger and thumb. Then I am going to take this back loop here and pull it over the front loop on my fingers, keeping that loop on the fingers. And then I'm going to tuck my index finger on my other hand underneath this new back loop, pull it over the loop and off my fingers while keeping the other loop on my fingers. Then I'm going to insert my hook and pull the knot tight. Keep in mind you don't want to keep the knot tight the entire time. Otherwise your project will be too stiff, and you don't want to keep it too loose. You want to have a controlled tension throughout the project. Now we are going to chain 6. To chain, you are going to wrap around your hook like so and pull through your loop. You're just going to do that 5 more times. Wrap around your hook and pull through the loop. 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we are going to move on to our first row. We are going to single crochet in the third chain from our hook. 1, 2, 3 right here. To single crochet, you are going to insert your hook into that chain, wrap around your hook, pull through the chain, keeping 2 loops on your hook, wrap around your hook, and pull through both those loops. Then in the next chain, you are going to double crochet. To double crochet, you are going to wrap around your hook, insert your hook into the chain, wrap around your hook, pull through just the chain, wrap around your hook, pull through 2 loops, wrap around your hook, and pull through 2 loops. Then we are going to do another single crochet, inserting our hook into the chain, wrapping around our hook, pulling through the chain, wrapping around our hook, and pulling through 2 loops. Then we are going to do another double crochet, wrapping around our hook, inserting our hook into the chain, wrapping around our hook, pulling through the chain, wrapping around our hook, pulling through 2 loops, wrapping around our hook, pulling through 2 loops. And we have completed our first row of our ribbon. To move on to the next row, you are going to chain 1 and turn your project by flipping it around. Then you are going to repeat the pattern we did before, first single crocheting into that previous double crochet, and then double crocheting into the previous single crochet, and then single crocheting again, and double crocheting again. And you're just going to repeat this pattern until your ribbon is 11 inches long. Now that you have a ribbon that is 11 inches, you're going to need to make another one. But first, I'm going to show you how to fasten off. How I fasten off is I grab my yarn and I hold it to my pinky here, and I'll just cut it that length, which matches a similar length to this first end that we have. And now I just need to make another ribbon of the same length and same width, following the same pattern as previously. Once you have two ribbons that are 11 inches long, you are ready to move on to the next piece. Just fasten off that second ribbon as well. And you can set these aside for the time being. After you set those aside, you are ready to move on to this third piece here, the middle. It's the same width and same pattern of stitch. So we're going to start with a slip knot. And then we're going to chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We're going to single crochet in the third stitch from our hook, double crochet in the next, single crochet, and double crochet again. And we're just going to repeat that until this piece is 4 inches long. You might want to go on the lesser side of that if your stitches don't exactly meet up to 4 inches. Otherwise your middle piece will be too loose. Alrighty, once you get that third piece done, you can fasten off once again. And you have all the pieces you're going to need to make the main bow part. Your middle piece, the two ribbons, your barrette, and you will need your tapestry needle and scissors and some yarn to sew the barrette on. To start, we are going to make our middle pieces. Fold like this. Or, I didn't mean to say middle. The ribbons, the 11-inch ribbons. First, you are going to fold it in half, like so, and then you can thread your tapestry needle through both these ends here. When I thread the needle, I like to fold my yarn in half just so it doesn't split the ends and pull through. Then you are going to sew this opening here. Make sure your ribbon is not twisted as well. This will lock that twist in otherwise. To sew, I'm just going to go into one stitch and then through to the other stitch and pull. Then I'm going to go into the next stitch and into the next stitch and pull. And do that 2 more times until I'm at the other side. Now my ribbon is sewn together. I'm going to tuck in the ends now. I'm going to weave in the ends by going through this loop here. You can see this V right there. And the V for the next stitch is a little over to the side. The next V, and through one loop on the edge here. And then pull through. And you don't want it to stay tight like this, so make sure you loosen it. Otherwise you'll have a wonky looking bow. Then you're going to turn and go through the other side again, skipping this first loop on the edge here, going through those V's, like so, and pulling through the other side. And if you have enough tail, you can go back through again, but I've run out, so I'm going to trim my end now. And set it aside. And then I'm just going to flip this right side out, and I have one piece of the ribbon done. I'm going to do the same thing for this piece, and now you're ready for your middle piece. For the middle piece, when we do this part, we are going to attach these pieces together. To do this, I'm going to take one piece and put it inside the other piece like so, keeping the sewn parts in the same spot together and keeping it folded in half. Then I'm going to lay it down, and I'm going to lay the non-open side of my middle down, facing the non-open side of my ribbons down as well, like so. Then I'm going to fold the opening up together and thread my needle with the two ends again. And I'm going to sew just the stitches together like I did before, not sewing into these middle pieces yet. Going through just the stitches. And then once I've gone through the stitches, I'm going to lock this middle piece in, making sure that it's still in the middle of these ribbons here. I'm going to go through some of the V's, like so, just two. And now I'm going to go back through where I sewed here, this time going into the bottom pieces here, like so, and then skipping a little gap, going into one of the openings and coming out the other side. And then on the other side, I'm going to tuck in my ends back into the middle piece here, going through the V's. And I had a short end again, so I'm just going to put my needle through those loops, thread it, and pull that loop through again, and trim it. And you can spread the loops here on either side of your middle and open them up. Alright, now we're ready to attach the barrette. You can open up your barrette. And now we're ready to attach the barrette. First, we are going to thread our needle with the tail we just cut. And then we are going to tuck it in to the bow. I'm going to tuck it in over here, just going through a line of loops in one of the rows and pulling through, leaving a little bit of a tail at the end, skipping a loop and going back through. And now I'm ready to start attaching my barrette. To attach the barrette, you are going to open it up and make sure the back here is face down onto the bow, and the back here is where the end of your yarn is, at least nearby it. Then you are going to pinch this end here onto the bow to hold it in place, and you're ready to start sewing the barrette on. To sew the barrette on, looks like I'm a little far, so I'm just going to go through the loop to get a little bit closer. Okay. To sew the barrette on, you are going to go through the hole here, like so, just underneath one edge, not both, and not through this middle hole here either, and pull through, trying to keep this thread at the edge up here. Then you're going to go through about 2 to 3 loops nearby the edge to sew the barrette in, like so. Then go back through this hole again, making sure the thread stays over here. Going through about 2 to 3 loops nearby, pulling through, going back through the hole again, pulling through, and going through the loops again. Then you need to get to the end of the yarn over here. So all you need to do is go through the loops under here, and you can kind of feel if you're going through the project or just underneath here. Then you're going to pull through. You can turn to hold the project more comfortably, making sure to keep this end of the barrette pinched. Now you're going to go through the hole on this side like this. You need to go through down here unless you have a smaller needle, just so the needle fits through. And pull through, keeping the end of the yarn down here, and going through some loops nearby, and pulling through, then going through the hole again, pulling through, going through the loops nearby, pulling through and going through the hole one more time, pulling through and going through the loops nearby one more time. And now we have this end of the barrette sewn in place. Now we need to go to the other side, otherwise our bow is going to like flop around. We want more security. To get there, you can just follow a little path of loops that you find to hide the end and make it secure, like so. Pulling through, might want to be a little bit closer. All right. If you have a needle that is small enough, you can go through the hole that's on the end of the barrette here. I don't, so I'm going to go through this middle hole still, like so, and pulling through. And then I'm going to go through some loops on this side of the barrette, pulling through, going back through this hole again, pulling through. Now I'm going to go through some loops in front of the barrette, like so, and going back through this hole again. And then I'm going to go through some loops on this side of the barrette. And now the barrette is pretty much attached. I just have to lock in and tuck in the rest of the end here. So I'm going to weave it in any nearby loops right here. Going through one side, pulling through, skipping a loop, going through the other side, pulling through, skipping a loop, going back through another side. And then I can cut my end, set it aside, and double check that your barrette still closes and your yarn's not too thick. And you have the bow part done. Now let's move on to the next piece. We are going to make the hair tie piece. To start, grab your hair tie and make a slip knot. For the size of my yarn and hook, I'm going to do 35 stitches around the hair tie. To start, I'm going to insert my hook into the hair tie. Then I'm going to wrap around my hook to make a single crochet, pull through the hair tie, wrap around my hook again, and pull through both the loops on my hook. And pulling this end tight, and now I've locked in and made my first stitch. Then I'm going to show you again. You just insert your hook into the hair tie and wrap around the yarn on the other side, pull underneath the hair tie, wrap around your hook again, pull through both loops on your hook. And you're just going to do that 33 more times, or however many stitches you need to cover your hair tie. Once you have covered your hair tie in single crochets, you can slip stitch into this last single crochet, well, the first single crochet you made. To slip stitch, you're going to insert your hook into the stitch, wrap around your hook, pull through the stitch, and pull through the remaining loop on your hook. Now we are going to make the ribbons that come off of the hair tie. To do that, you're going to chain one, and then single crochet into the next stitch. Then you're going to double crochet into the next, single crochet, and double crochet again. Then you are going to chain one, turn your work, single crochet, double crochet, and you should start seeing a familiar pattern. Now you're just going to continue following this pattern until you get about 5 inches in length. Once you get your ribbon on your hair tie to about 5 inches in length, you can fasten off. And then you are going to start making the other ribbon on the other side. To do that, you are going to insert your hook into the last stitch on the row, on your first row that is attached to the ribbon here. And then you can drape your yarn over your hook, trying to get about a 3 to 4 inch tail on the end there. Then you're going to pull your hook through that stitch and grab the yarn that isn't the tail, wrap around your hook and pull through the loop again, and then pull tight. Then you are going to then you're going to chain. Then you are going to single crochet into the next stitch, double crochet into the next, single crochet into the next, double crochet into the next, and chain, and continue the pattern again until you get this ribbon to be 5 inches in length. Once you get your other ribbon to be about 5 inches, you can fasten off once again. And now we're almost done. We just have to weave in our ends. Once you have tucked in your last end, you can set this aside before we're done. And you can grab a bag or a jar, in my case, to put your scraps in. You want to save your scraps because you can stuff them in future amigurumi projects, or you can return them into fiber and recycle them and turn them back into yarn. Don't forget to recycle. And then we are all done with our bows. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next video.